Hey guys, welcome to day one of the Intuition versus Ego Challenge. This stuff is my jam. I love talking about this and educating people about this. I really feel like this is my purpose work. Giving intuition a PR makeover, letting people know what it really is, because it's been given a bad reputation. And I think that when people understand what intuition really is, it makes a big difference in their life, and they start to open up and allow it and understand it a little bit better. And just that alone, just that like minute to understand it is life changing. So hey girl, thanks for being here. So this is sort of what I'm gonna do with these videos. I'm gonna sort of recap to you a little bit about what the day's lesson is, and then I want to answer any questions that you have, that you've come upon while you were doing the reflection work, or just in reading it, or just in life with your intuition and ego. So if you catch me live, I will answer whatever you got for questions. If you don't catch me live, you can still ask and I will type you back an answer. So you have to just look at the top. If it says is live, I'm still here and I will answer your question. If it says was live, I am very magical, but I'm not magical enough to go back in time and restart a video to answer your question. So that's how that works. So today we're really getting an understanding of what intuition and ego is. People think of intuition, they think of fortune telling. That's the most the most common sort of thing that I get anyways. So when somebody, will say, oh, you're an intuitive, they automatically think that I'm going to do some sort of fortune telling, and they automatically think that even if they want to be open to it, there's this like feeling that what I might be doing is fraudulent. And people get very defensive, and it's sort of like, well, I want to make sure I'm not being tricked by this. But being an intuitive, that's not what that means. What it means when you're an intuitive is just that you use and rely heavily on your intuition to do whatever it is that your job is. So it's one of those terms. I feel like the terms psychic and intuitive probably mean the same thing, but I bet a lot of you, like me, when you hear the term psychic, are like, ew, like I don't like being called that. And it's only because of what's become of that. And I'm actually giving you in this challenge a history lesson on why that happens. And I used to like kid glove this history lesson because people get like sometimes a little bent out of shape about some of it, but I didn't in this challenge. I just told you exactly like it is. And I didn't go too deep, and it's not like you're reading a history book, but just an understanding of why you've been taught to mistrust your intuition, and why it's been put in this category of like fortune telling and fraudulentness. I feel like there's never a TV show that I watch where they don't portray some like psychic on it as being this silly fraud or this like trickster, shyster person. And it's always like people dress up like a gypsy for, to be a psychic, which I think is funny because those are different things. I have gypsy blood. I got nothing against gypsies. I definitely have that in my DNA, but that's again not what that is. So it's like this weird misconception that's gone on. So I'll be telling you why society's got you mistrusting your ego, mistrusting your intuition, and falsely trusting your ego. I'll get into that tomorrow, and then I'll also give you a little history lesson on like what went down. How did we get here? Back in the day, we used to live in a society that intuition was the main player and ego had its place. Your ego isn't a bad thing. Your ego is a good thing. You need it. You need it to be alive. Like, I would be dead, very dead, because I'm the kind of person who looks at like jumping off of a tall building and being like, well, that looks fun. Maybe I should try that. And luckily I have an ego that's not going to allow that, right? Typically, the more intuitive you are, so the stronger intuition you have, the stronger ego you have also. So people who are very intuitive, a lot of times people mistake it like, oh, it's just easier for them because their intuition is stronger. But it doesn't work that way. If your intuition is very strong, so is your ego. So it can feel, especially when you start to trust your intuition again, and you start to try to let go of some of the places that ego has power in your life, it can feel really, really difficult, and it can feel scary, right? There's a lot of fear involved. That's what your ego does. Your ego doesn't like to give up power. Your ego it's not a bad thing. It's just trying to keep you safe, and it thinks these are the ways you need it to. So I want you to think of intuition as your sense of feeling. And it's just every way that you get information that's not through conscious thought, which is the majority of the way that you gather information. And I'm not making that up. And I'm not just saying that because, yay, I love intuition. The majority of the information that you take in comes from your intuition. It comes from not from logic, not from thinking something out. The majority of the information you get comes from your intuition, comes from looking and going, okay, this energy comes in and I feel this. And it's the vast majority, okay? So understanding that that's what's going on is a really important, big deal. Make sense? Patricia said, I don't like the fact that the ego gets stronger when intuition becomes stronger. So that's not exactly true, Patricia. It is true if you are born with a very strong sense of intuition, that you're also born with a very strong ego. But as you strengthen your intuition, which really just means that you trust it more and you learn more about it, your ego actually relaxes a little bit. So it's kind of nice because, now I will say, Patricia, at first, and I think this might be what you're talking about, when you first start trusting your intuition more and trying to learn about it and lean on it a bit more, your ego freaks the hell out. It's like, what are you doing? This does not seem safe, because you've been taught to mistrust your intuition, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So that does feel that way. But what happens is that you begin to see your ego differently. So when I was a kid, my father used to teach us about mental toughness, okay? So what he would mean by that would be choosing to go down a thought path or not. When your mind triggered something, you have the ability to choose that or to not choose that. All right. And so a lot of the ways that he would teach me about that would have to do with like sports, or when I was learning to drive. Any of those times where I felt like I was on the spot, like there was pressure on me to do something, I would have a lot of trouble, because for me, when I was a little kid, I did not ever want to let anybody down. I wanted to just do everything for everybody else. My dad was very intuitive as well. So he would teach me about mental toughness. And so he would say, you don't have to choose that thought. You don't have to choose those feelings. So there was one time when I was learning to drive, and I was learning to drive a stick shift, which when I was 16 was like the hardest thing ever. And I was so glad I learned it, because I loved driving that for the long time that I did. But I was in the car and I was freaking out because I was messing it up. I was messing up. I couldn't even get out of the driveway. And I started to get just like so frustrated. And he said, what's going on? And I was like, I can't do this. I feel so frustrated and I'm going to cry and this is too hard. And he said to me, you don't have to choose that though. You don't have to choose that. You can choose something different. Yes, your mind is telling you that this is too hard and this is too frustrating and you're not going to get it, and then it means something about how smart you are, but you don't have to choose this. You don't have to pick that thought. You can instead choose to be patient and to be open. And that's what I did. All right. There was another time when I was really nervous because we were going somewhere, and the place that we were going, I had to get on stage and do something that wasn't dancing. So that meant I was petrified to do whatever it was. And so we were on our way there and I started having a lot of anxiety. All right. It was just like, right? And I was like, oh my God. And I started vocalizing that to him, and he would say, you don't have to pick that. You don't have to choose to feel those ways. Ask yourself, is that going to help you? And I was like, no. Is that going to make you do better when you get up on that stage? No. Then why would you choose that? And so I'm going to say that throughout my life, I still think that way. Now, sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes you've got to go down the slide of crazy anxiety. Sometimes you can't get off that slide. But just knowing that those thoughts and those feelings that would rush in when fear was present was something that wasn't just me. That wasn't what I had to feel or think. I still had a choice. And what it did was teach me that there was a separation between that stuff and me. Does that make sense? And just knowing that there was space there helps. One of the things, especially when I have male clients, that kind of blows their mind and makes a big difference is when I let them know that that ego voice running through their head is not them, that it's their ego. They're their intuition. You're listening to both, but your soul is your intuition and your mind is running this to give you information. And sometimes people's mind get a little blown by that, especially men, because we do a really shitty job teaching men how to be intuitive and emotional and to feel things, right? We put a lot of shame on them for that. So sometimes just understanding that those are choices, that's not something you have to go down that path. Just because you go into a situation and you feel nervous or scared or anxious doesn't mean you have to stay there. It doesn't mean that's the choice that you have to take. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you're stuck there, but not always, okay? So sometimes people will say to me, I can't do public speaking because I'm afraid. And I'll say to them, well, you were afraid in the past, but you don't have to choose being afraid in the future, right? And that just thought that it's always going to be that I'm afraid is just because you have a shitty mindset about it. And you probably earned it. You probably were bad shit afraid one time, or it didn't go well, or your voice squeaked, or someone in your class made fun of you when you were doing a project in school. I'm sure your ego has evidence as to why it's going to bring up that panicky reaction when you think about it. But it doesn't have to be that way in the future. You don't have to continue to choose that. Intuition is feeling, so you can choose a different thing every time, right? Have you ever gone to do something that used to make you so afraid, and because you've done it so many times, you're not afraid of it anymore? That's because your ego got enough evidence that it's safe for you to do it, that it didn't kick up all of that fear. I want you to think of egos as problem dogs. Now stick with me on this because you're probably like, what in the freaking heck are you talking about? Stick with me on this for a second. If you ever watched Cesar Millan, the Dog Whisperer shows, or read his book, or seen anything, I think he has stuff on Netflix if you want to know what I'm talking about and you haven't. If you can think of him and what he does energetically and intuitively, it can help. So when there's a problem dog going on, right? There's a dog that's got behavioral issues. The problem is that the dog doesn't feel safe, and the dog is trapped in a fear reaction, in a fear cycle, and it like bites people or runs in circles or won't sit or hides or pees everywhere or whatever, right? Its behavior is very much altered by being stuck in a tunnel of fear. And so what Cesar does is come in with a very calm, leadership, solid, I've got this, I'm in charge vibe, which makes the dog relax and feel safe. Your intuition does that same thing to your ego. It's just that you don't know how to use it that way. So let's look at your intuition and ego and what happens when something comes up. So let's think of a scenario where your intuition and ego might be arguing with each other. And I'll try to make it sort of a general one. I always try really hard not to, like, people who are watching, like, pull something out of your energy field that's really going on, but a lot of times I do, so sorry. I try to make it random, but it hardly ever is. Let's say you are trying to decide if you should move or you should stay in the home that you have. All right, let's say that's one of the decisions that you have. So you're looking at this. What's going to happen first when this thought comes into your head, or when someone presents this to you, what's going to happen first is that your intuition is going to immediately react. Probably before you've even finished the thought, probably before you even become conscious and aware of what's going on, your intuition, boom, is reacting, okay? Oh, and I see you guys asking questions. Keep going. I will get to them all at the end. Ask as many as you want. I'm happy to answer. And so right away, Your intuition, Alyssa, you just thought of that. I told you I tried to be random, but I can't help it. I'm all up in everyone's energy business all the time. So your intuition is going to immediately react, but it reacts quietly. A lot of people expect their intuition to feel just like their ego does. You're very used to hearing your ego, but your intuition does not behave like that. It's not a voice in your head like your ego is in your mind. That's not what it is. It's not thoughts, right? What your intuition is feeling, and then information coming from that feeling. It's sort of like being pointed or led somewhere, and you're sort of feeling your way that way. So you get this sort of feeling, and it's not a real emotional feeling. I don't mean like you suddenly become very nervous or you suddenly feel very happy. I mean you just feel something. You feel like you know it's true. You feel a truth to it. You feel like yes, you just know it, and it's quiet. And it doesn't repeat itself. It's just boop, and then information comes in once that feeling. It's like the feeling is the first little piece of it, and then it's like a flower opening up where the information comes in. And this part where the flower blooms and opens up and starts to give you information is where people's egos start to interrupt. So if you don't know how to get your ego to be calm, you'll miss all of this information, and you'll only get that little feeling for a second, and then your ego will freak you the hell out. Okay, so intuition comes in, feel, and then you get this information. Now your ego is going to begin to try to interrupt here. Ideally, you want to be like, I know, ego, I know you got some shit to say. Hold on, I'm listening to my intuition first. Now, if you can't, if your ego's being too loud, go ahead and give it the information. Your intuition is not going to go anywhere. You can tap into that information anytime. But I am telling you, it is much easier to grab that information before all the fear-based thoughts have come into your head. It's going to be much clearer. Your ego is going to be a lot more freaked out when it gets to speak, but it's much easier to get that information before fear has its say. So let's say when that happens, you feel an immediate, yes, I do want to move. That feels good. You almost feel your body lean forward, okay? It has to do with polarity and stuff. This is like, yes, right? So you sort of react to it. You feel the effect in your body. Even your posture has an effect. And you know you want to, and you immediately start to kind of picture it, and you know it. And then following that is this fear. Because now your ego has got to speak, and it's got to say to you, now that you feel that way, let's bring up all the concerns. These are the things that could go wrong. These are the things that could cause you pain when you go to do this. And so your ego is going to pull from your past, and it's going to scan. It does the scan. It's like, just as your intuition's getting this information, your ego's back here scanning your whole life, like your timeline of your life. And it's like looking for the times you were in the most emotional pain. Your ego does protect you against physical pain. I get asked that. Very good. It does a very good job, a very effective job, and it's very connected to your body physically to stop that, or to give you a heads up, or to help you do what you need to do if you are hurt. But it is more concerned with emotional pain than it is physical. So what it will do is scan and look backwards for all the times you were in emotional pain. And so let's say you moved, you sold a house when you were like 7, all right, and you remember moving. Suddenly all the bad feelings, anything that you might have felt that was negative back when you moved when you were 7 years old, floods in. And if you don't understand at that moment that these are not current feelings, and this is not an answer, this is not your ego saying like, this is gonna happen. This is your ego going, this is information you need if you're going to do this. This is information you need to consider, because your ego doesn't want you to repeat pain. So it's going to pull from past pain to say, this is what you need to consider when you make a plan towards that thing your ego is telling you. I mean, towards that thing your intuition is telling you. So yes, you want to move. Okay, but remember when you were 7 and you had all of these emotions go with when you moved, and you witnessed your parents struggle for a little while money-wise, and you remember that the neighbors weren't as nice and they missed their old neighbors. They still to this day talk about missing their old neighbors. And it becomes this tunnel vision, and you can't even remember the parts of moving that were good, even though it was like mainly a good experience, let's say. That's what occurs. And if you don't understand that this is a process happening in front of you, if this is a process happening to give you information, it's not to be saying like, here's what you shouldn't do this because of this. That's what's happening. If you can understand that, you can look at it more objectively. So you can say, what do I need to do as I move through selling this house, going through that process, to protect myself against feeling these feelings again? What could I put in place? What could I do for myself to move through this process without repeating this pain? If you frame it that way in your mind, the ego will calm down. Your ego will not become that dog that's like, oh my God. It will know all she wants is information. But if your ego thinks you're making a decision based on its information, it will go nuts. It becomes that misbehaving dog that's afraid. And now it starts looking at anything that could possibly be in your brain. Suddenly there's a movie about moving where it went bad for someone. Suddenly you're thinking like every sign in the universe is to not do it. Like everything floods and you can't stop feeling incredibly afraid because your intuition's job is to make the decision, not your ego's. And so you're asking it to do something it's not designed to do. Your ego does not give a shit if you're happy. It doesn't even know what happy means. Your ego is just trying to keep you safe. And if you're using your ego to try and make you happy and to bring you to things that are going to make you feel happy, then you are going to be very unhappy because it doesn't know how to do that. It's not designed for that. All it's designed to do is to present you with fear. So you will use that fear to keep yourself as safe as possible and to get to the destination you're going in the best possible way. People sort of look at failure. Like, remember this time 20 years ago when I made that one mistake? And they think that's evidence that they're going to make it in the future because their ego reminds them of it when they do anything remotely like it. But your ego isn't saying that to you. Your ego is saying, remember what you learned in this time. Remember what that felt like and what you learned. So let's go to this time more well-informed, more educated, with more information so that we do a better job getting there and we don't repeat these past mistakes. It's sort of like being comfortable with your own history. If you can own that power, it's going to change everything because your ego is not a bad guy. It's just that you've given it all the power. So many people will tell me that they want to do these things that would make them feel good, but they can't because they don't have the money or it's not financially sound enough and it's not safe enough. Listen, I drank that Kool-Aid for a really long time. I still presented with that glass of Kool-Aid daily. I totally get that fear, but where did we go wrong here? And it's not your fault, it's society, but where did we go wrong as a society that we value being able to pay a bill or living in a certain home or the amount of money in our bank account over being happy? Where did that happen? Because that is a trick. I have been on that road before. That is a trick because you could have all the money in the world, and although you'll feel more secure, you will feel absolutely shitty if you're not happy. And it's really hard to manifest over abundance. It's really hard to manifest abundance if everything is fear-based because fear and scarcity are like BFFs. The energy of fear creates the energy of scarcity because fear is based on not having enough of something. So not enough intelligence, not enough beauty, not enough money, not enough power, you name it. It has to do with not having enough of that, not having enough love in your life, not having enough support, not having enough experience, whatever you've got. That's what fear is doing, right? So if you are coming from that place where everything is to just make sure you have enough money, you're going to be very unhappy and you're not going to have much money. And if you do have that money, it's not going to stick around because money is the energy of power, and power naturally drifts towards people who feel safe. People who feel powerful, money comes flying at. People who don't feel powerful experience a lot of scarcity because they are afraid. So if you can understand this about yourself, you can understand that your ego voice is not true. None of the information says it's true. It's taking stuff from your past and projecting it into your future. And so if you can understand that that's what's going on, you can know that's not a true story. My ego's making shit up. That didn't happen. That hasn't happened yet. if you can understand that and just sort of pull back a step and look at what your intuition says and look at what your ego says, you're going to notice a big difference. After my big meltdown, which, let's see, how old is my son? It's probably about 6 years ago now when I really crashed and burned, probably 7 years ago, actually, now that I'm doing the math better, with postpartum depression and being really unhappy. I made this promise to myself that I would always do what my intuition said. I would say yes immediately. I've been doing that for 7 years. And I have gone through lots of tough things, but I have never come out the other side with a regret. And I have always gotten to the thing I wanted to get to. I have yet to not reach a goal or a destination or a thing that I want to do. And your intuition doesn't lead you to a place that isn't scary. And it doesn't always lead you down a path that's, sunshine and roses. If what you need is to evolve and to learn something in order to get that thing that you don't have yet, your intuition will lead you through that lesson. If you want to swear at your intuition and your angels and the universe or whatever for the crappy stuff it's leading you to, go right ahead. That's fine. They don't care. But don't mistake your intuition for something that could be wrong, because right and wrong is not a concept that applies to intuition, only to ego. Intuition cannot be wrong, and it cannot lead you down the wrong path, because, spoiler alert, there is no wrong path. It's what you do in the moment. Adaptability and believing that you can adapt in whatever situation you're in, that you'll pull yourself through, is the most powerful thing you could do to help your intuition be open. Okay? All right, let me get to some of your questions here. Just gonna scroll back for a second, and feel free to continue to ask if you haven't asked one yet. There's some highs here. Hello. Thank you for saying hi to me. Let's see. Did I get to the beginning? Okay, here we go. Jenny says, yes, the fear that holds us back. Okay, answered that one. Let's see. I just read this, make fear your friend and let intuition guide you. Yes, absolutely. Fear can guide you too, but not in a direction, right? Just in giving you information, right? Christine, you don't have to let me do what fear says, which is stay still and don't change anything, right? Because your ego knows you can survive what you're currently dealing with. It has direct current evidence of that, but it doesn't have evidence you can survive doing something that you haven't done, or you're not currently doing or haven't done in a while. So it's going to want you to stay put. It's going to make you feel the best about that, but that's a very temporary feeling. And if you're noticing that, your natural state, guys, is not to stay where you are. It's to constantly be moving and evolving and changing and doing things differently and better, and maybe on the same course, but in a different way. And so if you're only wanting to stay where you are, or you're wishing for the past or whatever, then that's because your ego is completely ruling everything. It's that crazy misbehaving dog in your life. And you need your intuition to come in and to say, ego, calm down. You don't have to do all this work anymore. You can relax. I'm going to have intuition be side by side with you, and we're going to do this together, right? So absolutely, fear can be your friend. It's an ally. It's like you're the CEO of your life, and your two best, right hand women and men, intuition and ego, are there giving you information, and you're taking their expertise and moving forward in the best way possible. But if you are not living your life in a way that's being driven by how you want to feel all the time, then you are not going to be happy. You are not going to be in line with your purpose, and you are going to be anything but fulfilled. You're going to be experiencing a lot of scarcity and a lot of lack, and you're going to be very unhappy. Been there, done that, don't want to do it again. You can get out, I promise. All right, let me see. Let's see. All right, so Jessie Diane Cook, hey girl, she said, I have this new idea and dream for my future that absolutely scares the shit out of me, but I'm beginning to change my brain and trust that it's a good thing. Thank you for helping me embrace this mindset shift. You are very welcome. If what your intuition says doesn't scare you, then it's probably not a very big deal, right? If it's something really important to you and it's purpose work, especially, your ego's gonna freak the hell out. That's a good sign. I always say when it feels great and terrifying, that's exactly what you should walk towards. You're absolutely capable. Honor those fears, honor them, listen to them. What can you do with them so that when you move forward, you are the best prepared? And remember that you can adapt to any situation. You are fully capable of handling that. You've done it a million times in the past, right? But that's awesome, Jessie. I love that. Patricia said, laugh a lot, that's me. Bad experience with doing speeches in high school. I hate getting up in front of peeps to speak, but for some strange reason, I can teach cardio fitness classes with no problem. Yeah, see? And can't you just call total bullshit on your ego for that? You're like, wait, I can do this, but not that. I used to be able to dance in front of people. Like, I would do shows and competitions and all this stuff. No sweat, no nerves. But if you asked me to talk in front of them, I would be like, I can't. I'm just like, my mouth would just get so dry and my throat would just close and I'm sweating. Can't do it. But now I do it for a living. When people pay me to come fly out and speak to them. What? I wish I could tell that girl that, right? And it's just because I changed the way I thought of it. I said, yeah, in the past, I had a little trouble with that. But I can gain the skills needed to do this and calm down, ego, right? And once you do that, and then you do it a few times, you speak a few times, it becomes different. The first time I spoke publicly was when I was leading a motherhood circle. And so we were sitting in the circle, and the very first thing I said was, I'm petrified to speak in front of you all, but I feel really led to. And it's sort of like everyone in the room sort of started rooting for me because of it. So don't be afraid to share what you're afraid of. You know, don't be afraid to be like, I'm so scared of this, but my heart told me I had to do it. You'll notice every empath, every intuitive person in that room will just start sending you the love. It's a beautiful thing. Let's see. Jenny says being comfortable with your own history is key. Absolutely. So many people look back into their history and into their stories, and they look back and they feel a lot of shame about the stuff that happened, and they feel like their story has power and control over them. I do a lot of this work with people in healing their past by taking your story back, by saying, like, I don't have to tell the story like this. This is my story. I can tell it exactly how I want to and when I want to. You know, sometimes people feel like, I really want to share this difficult thing that happened to me, but I don't feel ready. Then wait till you're ready. But don't decide that the things that happened to you that were bad, or the mistakes that you've made in your life, mean that you're lesser. They don't. If you paid attention and you're still aware of it, then it actually means that you're better because you learned something, right? You went into the arena and you got your ass kicked. Welcome to the club. We're gonna get our asses kicked a lot of times in this arena. You can keep doing it. You can get back up, right? It's not no one gets a bump-free ride. We all are gonna have difficulties. But if you follow your intuition, you will have much more joy. You will have much more fulfillment and happiness. And when you leave this life, you'll feel like you contributed something. You'll feel like you did something and you felt something and you experienced it. I don't know about you guys, but when I get over to the other side, to whoever the heck's there to greet me, I wanna come like crashing in like a hot mess with my hair all messed up and just, I don't know, like, whoa, how'd I get here? Super old. I just want to turn to them and be like, I did everything. I looked for it all. I faced every fear I could find. I tried all the shit. I did everything I could. I'm going to need a nap now. I don't want to get over there and be like, well, I played it safe and lived a small life. Like, who? No, I just want to be like, I tried it all and I found it all and I experienced as much of it as I could and I saw as much of it as I could. That's how I want to arrive over there. So if you kind of think about that, like, that's the kind of life I want, and you lead with that, like, what's calling me now? Where am I being brought to? How do I feel about it? What is my ego saying? What am I afraid of? And you know those things, you become powerful and you become the leader, the person in the driver's seat, instead of being like tossed around by fear all the time, right? Let's see. Alyssa says, I'm having a bit of trouble conceptualizing ego and intuition. Is ego something outside of you, like the little thing sitting on your shoulder whispering to you, or is it a part of you like your intuition is? Great question, Alyssa. So it is a part of you. It's the human part of you. So if you think of, this is not exactly true because this is more of an energetic pieces of you than like physical, but just so that you can conceptualize it a little better, if you think of your intuition as your heart and your soul, that's what your intuition is, and you think of your ego as your mind, as your brain and the way that you're thinking, if you think of them that way, it can sort of help you a little bit. But everything that you do is sort of led by both. So sometimes people will say, I made that decision purely out of intuition. And I'm like, oh my God, you're such a liar. Like, maybe you think that you did, but you definitely didn't, because they're interwoven in everything that you do. It's sort of like saying, are my insides made, like, what's in my blood? You know, like what part of my blood is this and what part of my blood is that chemical, and this one. It doesn't really work that way. Every fiber of your being is both intuition and ego. It's just that they're the polarity of who you are. They're the yin and yang of you. We live here on Earth on a planet of polarity, right? So your intuition is the thing that leads you to feel good, and your ego is the thing that leads you to be safe. So you have love and fear are the energies of those two things that make up what and who you are. And that it's that way for everybody. And everyone has parts of them that are stronger intuitively and parts of them that are stronger in ego. And everyone's intuition does different things, and everyone's ego does different things. My intuition works really well when somebody gives me a piece of information and says, I have a problem, or I'm stuck, or this is what's going on. When given that information, it's like, bloop, and I immediately see what's going on. Intuition and ego for me, like I can read it in a person. So I can see what their ego is doing, I can see what their intuition's doing, and I can see where they're being led. Like, so I use a lot of angel energy for that, because angels are super connected to both your intuition and ego. So they really understand both. So what you do is they're leading you and like pulling you towards this intuitive thing that's like your true authentic self, and all the things in ego that you're behaving and being driven by are sort of like flagged for me. So I can sort of see where the adjustments need to be made and lead you to that. That's how my intuition works. Some people don't want any information. Like if you tell them anything, it like bleh, jams them up. They just want to be like, give me no information, just your name. And then they want to like pick information up. That's just a different kind. Some people's intuition works better on like medical issues, like physical ailments going on. They pick that up really easy. Some people's intuition works stronger when it comes to spirits and communicating with them. It really just depends on what your purpose is. Your intuition is going to be strongest in the areas that will aid you in doing your purpose work here. All right. My intuition is also very strong in how to teach people something and how to present something to people, and what people need for tools in order to do the things that I see they need to do. So it works that way. Other people's, they have no idea about that. They just want to come in and hear something and direct. So it just really depends on what works and what doesn't. Does that make sense? I hope that helps a little bit, Alyssa. Hannah says, what is the difference between your intuition and messages, signs from spirit, the universe, etc.? Awesome question, Hannah. So there really isn't a difference. Those things come in through your intuition. So like I said before, intuition is any way that you grab information and process it that's not using your conscious mind. So the energy of spirits, of angels, of anything like that, their energy is always just around us. It's just flying around. All right. So some of us, our intuition works in a way that we just easily read that information. So it comes in and we just kind of know it, and we can sense it and feel it through our clairs. So we have a day where I teach you about the clairs. So like I'm sure you've heard of clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience. So those are your inner senses that work with your intuition. Your ego senses are your outer senses that you see with your eyes. That's an ego sense, okay? Your ego senses are wrong all the time, easily tricked, right? Because that's your brain. Your intuitive senses are much different. So you see and process that information with that, and then you bring that information into your conscious mind and figure out what to do with it. So it's sort of like the opposite way you think of operating. Like people will try to be like, I want to get a message from spirit. Let me think of this person's name and try to get it. It doesn't really work that way. It's not like dialing. It's more like, oh, I'm feeling this energy and giving that information to people. So it works in your intuition, and then you have to use your ego to understand the message that came in and then understand how to vocalize it to the person. So it uses both, but comes in through your intuition. Hopefully that makes sense, Hannah. Let me know if it doesn't. I can explain more. Hey Rose, she said, I like when you said money is the energy of power. When I feel powerful, I am able to attract abundance so much better than from a place of fear. What am I going to do? Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I know somebody who works in finance, higher up, like, I don't even know what the titles are because it's just like a bunch of alphabet numbers and they're a big deal. And I asked them one time, I said, explain to me how all this stuff works in language that I'll understand, like stock markets and why the economy does what it does. Can you give it to me in my language? And so what he said to me was so simple and so amazingly powerful. He said, money follows power. So if you feel powerful, if you feel like you got this, you feel safe and secure and happy, money follows that energy. It just like trails it. When you feel nervous or scared or fear, money scoots away from it. It like flings away at all costs. And I was like, it's that simple? And he was like, yeah. I was like, and money's just like a made up thing, right? It's not like a real thing. It's just people printing it. Like, it's not a real thing. Exactly, is what he said. Then I asked if I could quote him and use his name, and he said no. But if you can understand that even people who work high up in finance know this, and you know, think of the times when like the stock markets crashed or the economy or the real estate market, there was a large amount of fear going on around and in that area based on other events. And so those things happened, right? So if you can understand that if you feel powerful, even if you're feeling shitty about paying your bills, but you believe that you're powerful enough to change this situation and to manifest something different and better, and you got to do the work, but the opportunities will come to you if you believe that. So if you think of it that way, there are plenty of very powerful people in the world who have a lot of money who are not good people. They don't walk around doing good things trying to help people. It's not like based on, you know, how great of a human you are. It's based on how powerful you feel. And then once you do feel powerful, you just keep getting more and more of that money coming towards you, right? So if you think of it that way, you know, and our culture sets that up too, right? Think of the people with the most powerful influence. They're the people with money, right? So if you think of it that way, I think it helps too. Jenny says, I've called my ego out a lot in the past year and taking on 2019 with a purpose. I love that so much. I love it. Sean says, I've been without, and now that I'm afraid of money and making it, sometimes I get used to struggling financially. It wasn't fun, but it was what I knew. No more. Oh, that's a beautiful point, Sean, because remember, your ego knows you can survive what it's in, and it can even fear success. It can have something usually from your childhood. If you want to go back and figure out what's wrong with you, look at what happened around age 6. That's when your ego really started to develop, and that's when you trapped a lot of these beliefs that aren't true. They're just stories and mindsets that you're still operating in. So you may have even just seen someone or a relative gain a lot of money and then go through a really hard time, or have people, you know, become greedy or experience like being, you know, left by people not loving them anymore. And that could have come into your head and made you fear what it would be like to be successful. Or maybe you even heard your parents talking about someone who had a lot of money but blew it, and you get afraid that you could do that same thing. There's so many factors in this that if you don't choose the mindset you want, you're operating on one from being a child that's not even yours. It's probably someone else's shit that you picked up, right? So choose and work towards having that mindset so that you decide how you feel about stuff, right? And when you're used to something, your ego is going to want to keep you there because it knows you can be safe. Make sense? Hey, Susan, let's see. Patricia said, intuition can also be a quick message from another person. I've had that happen and I ignored it. Absolutely. It can be, and doesn't it just have to be dead people or angels? It can be alive humans sitting next to you that, boom, you just pick up something about. Trust it 100% of the time. Trust it. It doesn't matter. Trust it. Trust it. Let's see. Elizabeth said, so doll, ego is like perspective, intuition is more like truth. I love that. Yeah. I think to add to that, Elizabeth, what I would say is it's more like, It's consulting you. It's more like a consultant instead of perspective, right? Intuition is truth because it has to do with how you feel, and it's present, okay? And ego is going past future. It's not in the present at all. That's why you don't feel grounded at all when you're in like ego zone, right? So it's sort of going like, you know what? These are the factors you should consider where you've been hurt before. So let's create a plan based on what your intuition said and factoring in these things. So when you go towards it, there's a much lesser chance of you experiencing that pain, of you dealing with that again, or failing in that way that you're afraid to, all right? But your ego is not original. It can only use shit from your past to torture you in your future. So it's never, like people will be like, I don't know where this ego belief comes from. I never tried. It must just have been created. Not possible. Your ego is not that creative. In fact, your ego is not creative at all. That's your intuition that's creative. It's just looking for something. You just might not be consciously aware of what it was. And it's not always important to find it, but it is helpful if you can understand where it came from. You can sort of release it a little bit better that way. So searching for that, which is like my favorite thing to do with people, ask anybody, is super, super helpful. It helps you rewrite the story if you understand where it came from. But I love that with perspective and truth. Alyssa said, why do some spiritual practitioners speak more negatively about the ego and talk about getting rid of ego? It makes me feel like I should be like, fuck you, ego, and do the exact thing it does not want me to do, which is wild. So I don't want to like badmouth other people, but I would say I think the majority of people don't understand ego and intuition and for what they really are. So I think that it's just a misunderstanding, and I don't think it's really anybody's fault. I think it's just that it's been so wrong for so long and then so reinforced in society in the wrong ways that that's just kind of what's happened. And you know, people's term for ego, like people use that in very strange ways. The quote that I dislike the most is when people say fear is false evidence appearing real, and I'm like, is actually very real evidence because that shit did happen to you somewhere in some situation. So I just think it's a misunderstanding of it. And your ego isn't your decision maker. And if you know that your ego is just giving you information to factor in so that you go in a better way than you did before, or you go safer, you go with like a better chance of feeling the good ways, because you're more protected from those ways that are going to be really difficult for you. If you go into it knowing that way, I think it helps you put it into like a better mindset, right? Because if you think of ego as something you shouldn't listen to, you're also not going to do very well. You guys all know those people, right? Because I can think of like 6 of them, but I'm around intuitive people all the time who just do whatever their intuition says and they don't listen to their ego. They're more rare than the ego people. That's most everyone is just walking around afraid of shit all the time and playing it safe, right? But they really want that thing over there and they're just like, no, I'm not going to do it because I want to be able to pay my mortgage. It's like, you don't get like an extra, chest of gold when you die because you paid all your bills on time forever. That doesn't happen, spoiler alert. But anyways, those intuitive people, they never get anywhere, right? They just sort of like float around here and they never really have, and they just kind of spin around in a circle. And so you need both. Both are important. But just shifting what your ego's role is in your life is how you want to look at it. So I hope that helps. Let's see. I think I got to everything. Did I get to everybody's questions? I think I did. Okay, you're welcome. Awesome. Okay, so think of it that way and look at it that way, and you're going to feel a lot better, I think. If the definitions alone felt like it rocked you a little bit, wait till you come in for tomorrow's lesson. You could really be like, but please ask me questions. I think that's the best way to learn this stuff. When you ask or present something that you're having trouble with, or you don't quite get something, I really do think that asking helps. And it doesn't just help you, because somebody else has that freaking question too, right? So go ahead and ask it. You can ask it right in the comments. You can ask it in any of the live videos. I'll be in at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day this week. So you can do it then, or you can shoot me something privately, or through Messenger or through email. Any of those ways are fine. And I'll either answer it on the spot, or I'll say, oh, I'll answer that in the next video if I feel like it really should, be there. if it would benefit lots of people. So keep an eye for the videos, ask questions. If anything feels like to you, like something's really like, because some of the stuff is going to stir up things. And some people, especially if they are religious, which is awesome. You can be religious and intuitive. There's no rule against that. Sometimes hearing some of it can feel like a little difficult. So if that happens to you, please come to me for support. I'm really happy to do that for you and to help you sort of frame things to feel a little bit better. Okay. So look for that too, but make sure you're signed up for this so that your email address, I have it, and that you post the quote every day. Do your reflection work too, please, because I really want you to like this week to really be worth your while. But post whatever quote speaks to you the most with the hashtag, and then tag me if you're able to in the post on your personal Facebook page, and you're entered to win prizes. I have a bunch of cool stuff to give you. And that will be on Friday. So make sure you do that all week too. And so I need to make sure that you're signed up and getting the emails, and you can do, if you just signed up today or you do it tomorrow, that's fine. But make sure you do that, and then you post, and you'll be entered to win some stuff. And all you have to do is post a quote. You don't even have to use the pictures I have if you don't want to, with the hashtag so I can find it. All right, let me see. I think there was another question. Patricia said, off subject real quick, have I missed any videos on the help desk? Has it been a few months? Nope, if you go into the videos section here in the group, they're there. So yeah, they're all there. I don't think we've missed any. I usually do them at the end, like the last week of every month. So that's where they are. You're very welcome. Let's see, came in late but watching. Awesome. You're very welcome. You're very welcome, everybody. My pleasure. My favorite thing to talk about in the whole world. So go through, really do the reflective work and look at what today it's about, how much you're in intuition and how much you're in ego and what's driving you and how aware you are of both. Without judging yourself, just see what it's like. You don't know what to work on if you don't give yourself like a little, like where am I and what's going on? So make sure you do that. Jenny said, I loved your email this morning. It was like you were reading my mind last week or two. Enjoy the rest of your day. You too. And I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I love writing it. Okay. Have an awesome day. Keep posting here in the group and wherever else, and contact me when you have questions. I am so happy to support you and help you with this. Even if it's something uncomfortable, let me know. I'm happy to talk you through it and to help you with it. All right? Have a fantastic day, my friends. Bye.